Hello dear students, hope you all are doing fine and are safe at your places. Today we will be doing topic population characteristics, which comes under the chapter population ecology. To start with, by your previous class knowledge, you all know a population is generally a group of individuals of a particular species occupying a particular area at a specific time. Dear students, population ecology is the study of populations. It studies how organisms are distributed in space and time. A population has various characteristics such as density, natality, that is birth rate, mortality, that is death rate, dispersion, age structure, biotic potential, etc. And usually these properties are unique possession of the group and are not characteristics of individuals in the group. According to Thomas Parkwell, a population has characteristics or biological attributes which it shares with its component organisms, and it also has some characteristics or group attributes which are unique to that group. So, in other terms, population ecology can be defined as the ecological study of how biotic and abiotic factors influence various properties of population or various characteristics of population, as I have mentioned earlier, like density, natality, dispersion, mortality, etc. The population of species generally arises as a result of three factors, that is reproduction, active transport of individuals, or passive transport of individuals. And these three means of population growth are influenced by several factors of the environment and characteristics of individuals of a particular species itself. Your students' environment is never static and keeps on changing from time to time. That is, it is dynamic. So, it keeps a natural check on population. It can be stated now that population ecology deals with population characteristics, its dynamics, and regulation. The population has following 6 characteristics: population size and density, dispersion, age structure, natality, mortality, life tables, which we will be dealing in detail in the next section. Number 1, population size and density. Total size is generally expressed as number of individuals in a population, whereas population density is defined as number of individuals or the population biomass per unit area or volume of environment. For example, 200 trees per hectare for large species, we can say it like that. For smaller ones like diatoms and phytoplanktons, it would be like 3 millions or 4 millions cells per cubic meter of water. So density may be numerical or may be measured in terms of biomass. Numerical density is calculated where the size of individuals in the population is relatively uniform, as mammals, birds and insects. Whereas biomass density comes into play when the size of individuals is variable, such as trees. Now, since the patterns of dispersion of organisms in nature are different, they are differently placed, so it becomes important to distinguish between crude density and ecological density. Dear students, crude density is the density taken per unit total space, whereas ecological density or specific density is the density per unit habitat space, that is available area or volume that can actually be colonized by the population. Now, for example, in plant species like Acacia tora, individuals are found more crowded in shady patches and few in other parts of some area. Thus, density calculated in total area means shady as well as exposed, would be crude density, whereas density value for only shady area, that is where the plants actually grow, would be ecological density. I hope you have clearly understood it. Often it is more important to know whether a population is changing with time, that is increasing or decreasing, rather than to know its size at any one moment. In such cases, indices of relative abundance are useful. These indices may be time relative. For example, number of birds seen per hour. Another useful index is frequency of occurrence. For example, percentage of sample plots occupied by species. Now, there are several methods of estimating population densities. Number one, which we will be discussing in detail, is the Lincoln Index. The Lincoln Index is a common mark recapture method used to estimate the total population density in a particular area. This method relies on capturing and then marking some fraction of total population and then putting them back in the usual population and using that fraction to estimate the total population density. And the following equation is used to obtain this population estimate. Population estimate is designated by X here. It is being divided by number of animals captured in sample S1 at the time T1, that is at initial time when you will be marking those animals. It equates or equals to number of animals captured in sample S2 at time T2, like after when you recapture those animals, final collection of those animals or that fraction at final time T2 divided by number of marked animals found in sample S2 at time T2. Like when you will recapture, it's not necessary that you will be finding all the animals back which you have already marked in initial timing. However, this method or validity of this method relies or depends on following assumptions. That is, the marking technique has no negative effect on mortality of marked individuals. And the marked individuals are released at the original site of capture and they are allowed to mix with the population based on their natural behavior, whatsoever it is. And then the marking technique does not affect the probability of being recaptured. And also the marks such as ear tags and all are not lost or overlooked. Then there is no significant immigration or emigration of marked or unmarked individuals in the interval between T1, that is initial timing, and T2, final timing, and that there is no significant mortality or natality in the interval between T1 and T2. And violations of these assumptions certainly would not give us proper population estimate as per Lincoln Index. Other methods include minimum non-alive method. Again, it is mark recapture method to estimate population densities over extended periods of time. Next one is total count method, which is used for species which are large and conspicuous and organisms that aggregate into large breeding colonies. Then is quadrid or transect sampling method, which you have already done in your practical classes. And then is important percentage value method, which includes sum of relative density, relative dominance and relative frequency of a species in a particular community. Now, before we move further to other population characteristics, it is important here to know about growth rate. A population is a changing entity. Population ecology not only focuses on size and composition of population, but it also includes how that change occurred. What are the various factors that brought about that change? And these changes in size and composition of population are mainly brought about by 4 factors. Those 4 factors are natality, that is birth of offsprings or production of offsprings, then immigration, which is one-way inward movement of individuals, emigration, one-way outward movement of individuals, and mortality, death of individuals. And the study of changes in the relative number of organisms in the population and factors explaining these changes are studied or are termed as population dynamics. Now, you shall be knowing what is rate. The rate is generally obtained by dividing the change in some quantity by the period of time elapsed during the change. Thus, a rate would indicate the rapidity with which something changes with time. So, growth rate of a population can be defined as number of organisms added to the population per time. Here, if N represents number of organisms and T represents the time, then delta N, as you all know, delta represents change. Any change, you put delta in front of any letter to represent change. So delta N is equals to change in number of individuals, and delta N, if divided by change in time, that is delta T, it gives us the growth rate, that is average rate of change in number of organisms per time. And if average rate of change in number of organism is calculated per time per organism, that is delta N divided by N multiplied by delta T, it gives us specific growth rate. And when the specific growth rate is multiplied by 100, it gives us percentage growth rate. I hope the concept of growth rate is clear to you by now. Now moving ahead, second most important population characteristics is dispersion or spatial distribution. Now, dispersion is the spatial pattern of individuals in a population relative to one another. Now, in nature, due to various biotic interactions and influence of abiotic factors, the following 3 basic population distributions can be observed. Number 1 is uniform distribution or uniform dispersion, you can say. Here, individuals are evenly distributed. For example, birds nesting on small islands, king penguins on South Georgia Island in the South Atlantic Ocean often exhibit uniform spacing. The next is random dispersion. Random dispersion, here the position of one individual is unrelated to the position of its neighbors, and this is relatively rare in nature. For example, dandelions showing rhinochory grow from wind-blown seeds which land at random positions, that is, position of each individual or each dandelion is independent of other. And the third one is clumped dispersion. Most populations exhibit this dispersion to some extent, where individuals are aggregated into patches interspersed with no or few individuals. For many animals or individuals, living in groups increases effectiveness of hunting, protecting and caring young ones, etc. This clumping may be slight or extreme, and these 3 types are being shown by simplest diagrams. Next is third population property or characteristics is age structure. In most types of population, dear students, individuals are of different age, And this proportion of individuals in each age group is called age structure of that population, whether young, whether in middle age or old age. The ratio of various age groups in population determines the current reproductive status of the population, thus anticipating its future. Now, from an ecological point of view, there are three major ecological ages in any population. These are pre-reproductive, reproductive, and post-reproductive. And the relative duration of these age groups in proportion to the lifespan varies greatly with different organisms. Now, usually, a rapidly expanding population will contain a large proportion of young individuals. A stable population will show even distribution of all the age classes, whereas diminishing or declining population will have a large proportion of old individuals. So, the model which represents geometrically the proportions of different age groups in a population of any organism is called, that model is called age pyramid. According to Bodenheimer, there are following three basic types of age pyramids, as you can see in this diagram: A, B, and C. A is triangular shaped, B is bell shaped, and C is urn shaped pyramid. A represents expanding population, B represents stable population, and C represents diminishing or declining population. Triangular or expanding population is showing where there is young population, birth rate is high, they are rapidly growing, and population growth may be exponential as in case of yeast, housefly, etc. Whereas in stable population, second diagram, that is bell shaped, that indicates stationary or stable population having almost an equal number of young and middle-aged individuals. So the growth rate becomes slow and stable. And in third case, which is urn-shaped structure, which represents diminishing or declining population, it indicates a low percentage of young individuals and shows a declining population. That is, more or less this urn-shaped figure or this pyramid represents dying off population with very low percentage of young individuals. In an example of a hive of honeybees, Bodenheimer observed that there are shifts in age structure or a seasonal trend in population is seen. From January till November, he observed following changes. As being shown in diagram, that there is change from a rapidly growing population. You can just see that the pyramid being shown in January is with broad base, with rapidly growing population in January to a stable population in between, you can just see, and till November the pyramid is shifting towards urn-shaped. That is with lesser number of younger individuals, that represents declining or diminishing population. Now coming to next population characteristics, that is natality or birth rate. Dear students, we all know that population increases because of birth of new offsprings. It is simply a broader term covering the production of new individuals by birth, hatching, fission, whatsoever the process may be. The natality rate may be expressed as number of organisms born per female per unit time. In human population, the natality rate is equivalent to birth rate. Two types of natality can be distinguished. Number one, maximum natality, it's also known as absolute potential or physiological natality. It is the theoretical maximum production of new individuals under ideal conditions. That means there are no limitations, no ecological limiting factors, and the reproduction is limited only by physiological factors, if any. And that means it is usually constant for a given population. It is also known as fecundity rate. And second type of natality is ecological or realized, or you can simply term it as natality. It is the population increase under actual conditions. Maximum natality we talked about, population increase under ideal conditions. And here in ecological natality, it is the population increase under an actual and existing specific condition. That means it takes into account all the existing environmental factors. It is limited by all those ecological factors and it is not constant for a given population. This is known as fertility rate. And natality can be expressed as, if n is the initial number, capital N is the initial number of the organisms, small n is the new individuals in the population, and t is the time elapsed, then you can just see the equation delta n small n divided by delta t is the crude natality rate, whereas delta n small n divided by n delta t is the specific natality rate of a particular population. Now, following three population characteristics affect the rate at which females produce offsprings. That is clutch size or the number of young ones produced on each occasion. Next is the time between one reproductive event and the next. And the third is the age at which first reproduction happened. Thus, natality usually increases with the period of maturity and then falls again as the animal or organism gets older. So that was all about natality. Now coming to next population characteristics, mortality, that is death rate. Now mortality means the rate of death of individuals in the population. Like natality, mortality is or can be of two types. Number one, minimum mortality. It is also known as specific or potential mortality. It talks about theoretical minimum loss under ideal or non-limiting conditions, that is no ecological factors, all ideal conditions if observed. It is again constant for a population. And next is realized or ecological mortality, and it again, just like natality, it again talks about actual loss of individuals under a given environmental condition. All ecological factors here, they play their part. It is not under ideal conditions, it is the actual loss of individuals. Dear students, ecological mortality is not constant for a population and it varies with the environmental conditions and, for example, predation, diseases, etc. So, as the pattern of mortality with age is to be studied, we have to have a clear view about vital index and survivorship curves. A birth-death ratio is called vital index when it is multiplied by 100. 100 into birth divided by deaths. Birth-death ratio into 100. This gives us vital index of any population. And for a population, the surviving individuals are more important than the dead ones. This is a very important point. The survival rates are generally expressed by survivorship curves. And the survivorship curves where number of survivors to a particular age are plotted clearly illustrates the pattern of mortality with age. There are generally three types of survivorship curves and which can be constructed for a given cohort. Cohort means a group of individuals roughly of same age based on life table. Life table which gives us all information about natality, mortality in different ages and sexes. So survivorship curves can be constructed for a given cohort based on a life table. There are three types of survivorship curves, type 1, 2 and 3. Type 1, you can see this is highly convex survivorship curves and as you can see, it is characterized by mortality concentrated in aging stages or older stages. Whereas, opposite to it, in type 3, which is highly concave survivorship curve, mortality is concentrated in young individuals. And in between these two is type 2, that is diagonal or straight line survivorship curve, where mortality is independent of age. That is, it is constant or its proportion is constant, and the individuals dying per unit time are more or less maintained in this type of curve. Again, type 1, type 2, type 3, examples of this are being discussed here. Type 1, mainly humans, mammals. We fall under this category as we are characterized by high age-specific survival probability in early and middle life, followed by rapid decline in later old ages. And in type 2, which is linear curve or intermediate, which roughly I have already told you, constant mortality, that is, mortality is independent of age. For example, some rodents and birds, they fall in this category in type 3 or highly concave curves, where mortality is high during the young ages, and it usually characterizes those species which produce large number of offspring. For example, oysters, which produce millions of eggs, but most larvae die from predation or some other cases maybe, and those which survive long enough to produce a hard shell and live relatively long. So that was all about survivorship curves. Now here, when we talk about natality and mortality and survivorship curves, another important term, that is biotic potential, comes into play, which you shall be knowing at this point. So what is biotic potential? Dear students, each population has the inherent power to grow. When the environment is unlimited, the specific growth rate becomes constant and maximum for the existing conditions. That is, under ideal conditions, it would be maximum. And the value of growth rate under these favorable conditions is maximum and is characteristics of a particular population age structure. And this growth rate is index of inherent power of population to grow. Now, it may be represented or designated by symbol R, small r, which is the exponent in the differential equation of population growth in an unlimited environment under specific physical condition, that is ideal conditions. The index R or growth rate is actually the difference between instantaneous specific natality rate, we have already talked about natality rate in previous slides, and instantaneous specific mortality rate, which may thus be expressed as R is equals to B representing specific instantaneous specific natality rate and D representing specific mortality rate. The overall population growth rate under unlimited environmental conditions, that is maximal, which is represented by R, depends on the age composition and specific growth rates due to reproduction of component age groups. So dear students, that means there may be several values of R for a species depending on population structure, the age groups, the component age groups. When a stationary and stable distribution exists, the specific growth rate is called intrinsic rate of natural increase or R max. Chapman coined the term biotic potential to designate maximum reproductive power. He defined it, the inherent property of an organism to reproduce, to survive, that is, increase in numbers. It is a sort of algebraic sum of the number of young produced at each reproduction, number of reproduction in a given period of time, the sex ratio, and the general ability to survive under given physical conditions. Thus, biotic potential tries to put together natality, mortality, and age distribution. But, dear students, under natural conditions, this is a rare phenomenon. Since environmental conditions do not permit unlimited growth of any population, so its size is kept under natural check by certain ecological factors, that is environmental resistance, which is sum total of all limiting factors preventing biotic potential to be realized. So that was all about mortality. Now last but not the least, another important population property or population characteristics is life table, which is information on natality and mortality in different ages and sexes can be accumulated in the form of life table. From these, the growth and decline of population can be estimated. Now, dear students, species that differ widely in number of young produced each year and in the average age to which they live, of course, and their average rate of mortality. So, when sufficient facts about species are known, a life table that tabulates the vital stats of mortality and life expectancy for each group in the population may be formulated. And in each table, in each life table, if to be constructed, there are columns for age of the individual, then numbers surviving to each age, young, middle or old age, and the number is dying in each age group, the proportion dying from the previous age category, it is compared, and then fertility rate, the number of young born by each group. These all details or these all vital stats would be accumulated in the form of life table, thus giving us whole information about the net reproductive rate of the population, that is, how many offsprings are being left by each individual. So, that was all about population characteristics. Hope you have understood. Thank you, and we'll be continuing this chapter in the next presentation. Thanks a lot.